So, as we are preparing to head into our episode, does everyone remember where we were?
Let's see. There was a whole bunch of doubt running around.
At a school or something.
Yes, you all had matriculated once more into the world. You had graduated high school. You escaped the realities of high school. At least for the night. Doesn't mean that you may not have to be called back for summer school, but you know.
As I recall, did we actually manage to drive off or kill the wolf thing that was kidnapping me, or that?
Oh yeah, he's a puddle of goo.
Ah, he is a puddle of goo. Okay, good. And it's time to flee.
Notice that. I mean, we took the time to check the kill to confirm that he's actually dead. No. But we have other.
Was it actually a puddle of goo? Because I remember being concerned about leaving a dead body in the school.
Harmony was, in fact, mentioning how less than great of an idea that was. And the moldering hairy corpse, I think, seconded that idea.
I think I have a quick way to deal with that, but we'll have to wait until we actually get into play to see if Kira remembers to do it. Because I think, well, actually, storyteller, once someone dies, is their body considered an object now?
Sadly, outside of philosophically, no.
So touch of breath would not work on a dead body.
It would not.
Never mind.
But we do have someone in the group that can speed up time and decompose.
Oh, really? Who's that? I'd like to meet them.
Is our lovely Aurora.
Why would they want to decompose?
I think that's the highest form of chilling you could ever reach. It is chilling so quickly, so efficiently, you become decomposed matter relatively quickly.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
How about now?
Yep.
My input device had gotten switched to default from my headphones, so I was wondering if the switch was actually broken or if it just got switched, but no, the switch is broken.
Well, there you go.
You guys have switches?
Well, the kid does.
Hence Tyke snoring, because my mic should have been turned off.
Well, at his height, getting good clean air is a little bit difficult. Welcome. Everyone's meditating. We're almost done.
All right. I think I got it fixed. Apparently, Discord decided, hey, the computer microphone is the one that I want. But no, my computer's like, no, we're using your headset.
I had just gotten back into trying to use Steam, and I put it away because of that. Logging onto Steam, it defaulted every sound setting that I had and refused to relinquish control. So I killed Steam again.
It doesn't deserve any less.
Well, I hear good things, and the boy has a Steam Deck, and several others do, and it's great on the Steam Deck. It's just I'm fairly easily done with things as of late. And as I noshed the last bit of this lovely, delicious snack, for the record, this is officially Soup City Sins Obscura, Book 2, Chapter 5, the finale. And before we dive in completely, both feet hanging on with it for dear life, what are your questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round up? Though for how long? Though in all seriousness, are there any other questions, or do we have any thoughts, suggestions, or anything that would ease or help? Not sure why the mic does that, but our glorious, blessed silence, and even more consistent and constant than our silence, is my thanks for your skills. Thanks for the countless hours you've all spent applying this lovely hobby of ours and my enjoyment thereof. We have been at this in this form for just over 3 years. We have watched worlds spin out from the smallest of gestures and come crashing down from smaller. We've watched characters grow and begin. And while they are 100% fictional, they are the real examples of your creativity, your talents, and your investments. So I can't say it enough. Thank you. Thank you all. And without further delay, let us begin Soup City Sins Obscura, Book 2, Chapter 5, the finale. Endless, such is thy pleasure. When we last left our band of brethren, our merry motley of changelings, they had just left high school. They were standing in the middle of Blackstone Avenue, immediately directly in front of Kenwood Academy, Kenwood Academic Center, Kenwood High School. They had escaped high school. They were on the neighborhood facing front portion of Kenwood's property. They were due south of the Blackstone Library, the home of the Grand Chantry of the Tremere. They were blocks away from the Reynolds Club. They were blocks away from Kira's home. They were directly across the street from townhomes that reached back to the late 20s when they were constructed. Underneath those townhomes and courtyard buildings and apartment blocks, now it could be that they've been refitted, redone, redesigned, and what have you, is a veritable treasure trove of interlinked and interconnected basements and coal spaces and coal chutes, and it is a world unto itself. The children at the high school have found hundreds of thousands of ways over the years to make those spaces their own, to have a clubhouse, a private space away from adult purview. It is almost the complete antithetical opposite of what the high school is, what the high school creates. A structured environment to teach the youth how to ease into polite adult society. It is no less bright. It is a coat of many colors, just as much as the high school and its surrounding energy aurora. But there's a hint of darker, wilder things. Behind them, in the breezeway of the building, the courtway of the high school, is a sopping, frozen, hairy corpse of something that should not exist, at least in this world. Scampering and clamoring around the walls, the ceiling tiles, through the floors, over the windows, are hundreds and thousands of doubts. Small Arcadian things that feed on all of the excess emotions, feeding on the darker things, the depression, the guilt, the hopelessness that comes with coming of age. And in that ripe and rife garden that is Kenwood, they've grown until they are completely and totally rife throughout the entirety of the building, the foundation, and the grounds immediately behind our modeling. The choice, as ever, is forward or retreat, and intuiting what that might mean in the moment.
Aurora looks at the rest of them and goes, I really don't want to go back in there, but the thing is, are we sure we should leave that weird body behind? I mean, they're gonna find it and start dissecting it and then realize there's weird shit that they're not supposed to know about as humans. I just feel like maybe we should grab it and do something else with it instead of leaving it in the middle of the floor, and then we should leave.
I mean, leaving a body anywhere is bad, but leaving a body in a school?
Better yet, can someone destroy it?
I tried, but nothing that I have contract for works like that. So if somebody has something that'll melt it or dismember it, that would probably work better than what I was trying to do. It's a creature, not a thing. I found that out. My thing only works for things, not creatures.
I mean, I'm no expert, but fire usually works pretty well.
So now you want to set the school on fire and leave a body.
The body.
All right, well,
Or
if
do you-
none of us can burn the body or destroy the body, then does anyone have a bag we can stick it in?
Aurora looks down at the shoulder tote bag that she's almost never without and goes, oh man.
I don't know that your bag is big enough. But that does bring up an interesting point. Could we just open up a doorway and shove it through to the hedge?
I don't know. Can we do that?
Worth a shot.
My only
That was
problem
it.
with that is that we've already had quite a bit of magic happen tonight, and I'm sure we've already caught the wrong sort of attention. So more maybe mundane methods.
Well, I don't see any wood chippers nearby, so our options are take it with us, chuck it in the hedge, or find some way to light it on fire now.
You know, it's really hard to run from the huntsman who's in jail.
There's an aphorism that everyone knows. It's one that runs the literal gamut of peoples. It's been translated into 1,000,001 languages. And that is, speak of the devil and he shall appear. You've all heard the hounds of the hunt on your trail. You've all felt the energy of being sought after by a being of Arcadia. And when you all mention the huntsman, you could swear you hear far off thunder. Looking towards the sky, you see nothing but stars, nary a cloud in them. Yet there's the very real feeling that something is breathing down your neck, that if something is walking in your shadow, that something has caught the scent.
Well, whatever you're gonna do, I have to do it quick because I don't like that feeling. Something's wrong. Something's coming.
I assume being a school, there's security cameras and all kinds of things that we're on.
Very much so. Inside the building.
Harmony will point at one of the cameras and go, well, one thing we need to do is find where those go.
Looking up at the camera. Burning it down is starting to sound like a better idea all the time.
Not if those feed to off-site, because then they not only have us murdering someone, but setting the school on fire.
But in the grand scheme of things, with the immortal souls of the living and time stretching on forever, is murder really that bad of a thing? When one really considers it, murder, is it really that horrible? After all, isn't a common denoting of what peoples exist on the planet called races? And there's anything that is a finish line, it is death. And you'd be simply helping someone across the finish line, something across the finish line in far excess of what they might have normally traveled. And while that is not anyone's normal path of thought, the feeling of that is very, very much as if it's coming from everywhere and nowhere.
All right, well, you guys get the body out. I'm going to go figure out where these cameras go. And then we need to get out of here.
Okay, meet by Kieran 5.
Sure. I don't even.
Whichever. And then she turns around and heads back towards the school.
Are we not still inside the school?
You were saying
We had exited.
Yeah, we had gotten out of the school.
Well, if we've left a body behind, my immediate concern is to figure out the cameras.
So you head back into school. You and Aurora. Harmony?
Yes.
Okay. Hazel, Kira, what are you doing as Aurora and Harmony head back in towards the school, back towards the way that you all just escaped, with the hundreds of thousands of doubts crawling all over the place, with the corpse sitting there in the causeway, with whatever it is in the distance drawing closer?
Kira will look at Hazel and say, so I guess we're dealing with the body?
It looks like.
That's where Aurora was going, towards the body.
All right, let's go. Do this quick.
I don't want this to become a normal thing for us.
I hope not.
One of the most consistent facts about Yoruban myth is Anansi, and how he got stories, tales, wisdom from the gods to give to mankind. The other pillar of those myths is that man's crying out for assistance, man's need of the divine, was so overwhelming, so overburdening, in asking and receiving and never being enough, that the gods decided to climb up their ladder into the sky, into heaven, and pull it up behind them. They left a little hanging down so that those who were worthy could make it, or they could maybe change their mind and come back one day. That same sense of a step too far, dancing on the razor's edge of yesterday and no other tomorrow, is where the Motley are as they enter once more into the very center of the nest of all of those doubts. Luckily, they are far braver than most. And when confronted with the sheer overabundance of those doubts, anyone individually able to weaken and sap one's strength, able to feed on the already existing doubts and multiply them hundreds of times over. As they reach the door at nearly the same time, the door they just exited, no lock will actually stand against them, not for long. Nothing can keep them out if they so chose. Nothing can keep them in if they so chose. The question is, between deciding and doing, there is 100 miles of space at times. You've all decided to head back into the doubts, to ameliorate whatever provable guilt that you existed here in this moment might exist. The question is, do you all brave knowing what's inside, facing your doubts, facing the angry horde of your doubts? Do you go back to high school?
For Harmony, it doesn't seem like there's much choice. This situation needs to be solved or it's going to cause problems later on. Also, I will hostile takeover this time, so at least we won't be on the cameras coming back in.
Out of character, this is becoming your catchphrase.
I mean, it's a completely useful power.
You just go in somewhere, I hostile takeover. Sir, this is a Wendy's, I hostile takeover.
Nothing will keep me out of the kitchen where they keep the rats.
They're summoning their intervention. Or La Sombra, actually, but you know.
What's the point in being a Ferris if I'm not supreme?
So, with the weight of decision sitting there before you all, do you make that leap and enter into that crawling, writhing mass of doubts and enter back into the school? Do you step across the threshold once more, knowing what you all are risking? Because in the truth of the matter is, you're not risking just your physical well-being and your freedoms. You're risking yourselves, something far more sensitive than being locked up for any period of time, far more debilitating in the long run.
Aurora doesn't feel like we have any choice. We have to get that body out of there and do something with it and get out of here. So, the heck with the bugs. We are heading into that building.
All right, once more into the breach.
With you all the way.
There's a conflagration of things that should never happen. One, you should never ever go swimming in a puddle of gasoline while gently on fire. One should never purposefully huff chloroform in a place where there's not much oxygen. One should never play Russian roulette with a fully loaded automatic. There are certain outcomes that are to be expected. Natural causes being the way that everyone expires. If you leap off of a skyscraper, it's naturally expected that you will expire. After all, gravity is a natural force of the world. And one should never mix one's bravery with a dedicated poor outcome. Yet the motley are things of magic. They are beings torn between Arcadia and our reality. So what's natural for them is not natural for any other being, because for them, the unnatural is very much that. Stepping across the threshold, the four of them determined to face down everything that they need to extricate any proof that they existed. That will to do, that bravery against all immediate dangers, risking more of themselves than they would if strapped with C4, creates a sort of magic, creates a moment of impossibility. Stepping across the threshold, as their feet connect with those poorly tiled, mismatched squares on the floor, looking toward the icy, melting, moist, hairy thing that once, seconds ago, attacked them. Watching the swarms of the doubts as they muster their courage and drive forward toward the only thing they can feed on. Those bright, shining embers of the changeling soul that have just re-entered. Harmony is swathed in the regalia of her station and her knighthood. Aurora becomes a shimmering, glowing pool of light, a sentient thing, neither flesh nor bone, but the very essence of what water is. Kira fades into an amberized daguerreotype of herself, her eyes being negatively exposed, as if someone flipped the film and allowed it to age hundreds of years, as if she was stuck in amber, a moment, a note, a thought. And Hazel immediately loses clear distinction of who she is, her hair becoming white, her skin pale as death itself, her eyes losing their shine, and her lips becoming red and bruised as if allowed to sit in the sun for far too long. The school around them, this palace towards discomfort, this church of growth, becomes a courtyard, one stacked high and filled with the bones of those who couldn't quite make it, who couldn't quite cut it, those consumed and discarded by the doubts, those who took the doubts home and spread them to their family and friends and associates, so they were left alone with their own doubts and their own depressive ideologies about the world. And sitting on a throne, hovering, wavering on spider silk threads, is a man so corpulent that looking at him makes you sweat. He is so corpulent that it seems as if the act of breathing is intensive exercise. The weight on his shoulder enough to cause the concrete beneath his feet to crack every time he steps. Yet there he sits on a throne, held aloft by spider silk threads. And his swollen, angry eyes take stations. Why are you here?
A friend was brought here.
There's no friends. You mean betrayers? There's no such thing as friends. Just people who haven't betrayed you yet.
As you wish, but you asked why we were here, that is why.
Would you be so kind as to roll your presence and either persuasion or subterfuge? Is that your final roll? Would you like to utilize any willpower?
Nope, that's it.
The shifting of his brows as the sweating intensifies, his beady little eyes fixing on the four of you, and the impossibility of your statement. No one has friends here. Friends don't actually exist. It's the antithetical to infinity. You found a way to divide by zero. You found a way to get a multiplicity of things from nothing. You made the stone bleed. And as if watching a three-headed cat sit up and beat him at poker for the second time, he slides off the throne, following the 6 feet to the concrete floor upon which you will stand. The moment that he hits, the truth of his weight becomes impossible to deny. The floors crack and rumble underneath him landing. And you'd expect there to be some immediate response, because there's no way anything living could carry that much weight and sit upon a throne held so far aloft without there being some outcome, some gravity, some measure of damage. The only thing that resounds is the ground beneath him cracks more, and the mass of his being moves and jiggles in response to gravity's touch. When he lands, you realize that even Aurora stands half a foot or more taller than he is. Despite his bulk and width, he's quite short, and he looks up at you as if he's inspecting the gift horse itself. You want to run that by me again?
Our comrade here was kidnapped and brought here by, as she points at the dead body, by that thing. We came here to retrieve them.
Pointing to
the dead body. Yes.
It should be there. You last saw it right about there. You were in the breezeway, not in a courtyard. You were just off of Hyde Park Boulevard. You were inside the high school. You are inside the high school, yet you are not anywhere near the high school. This space, the open air, the bones of the fallen, and the doubts standing at attention, many of them materializing pole arms and pikes as if they are servants, knights, guards, sentries. The lines of order that immediately falls over them is impossible to not notice. No longer are they creeping and crawling and wriggling and moving from shadow to shadow, nor playing between the rays of light. They are ordered and neat, standing upon the parapets, manning the paths, lining the walls at full attention.
Look, we're not here to fight you. We came here to conduct some business. We've conducted the business. Doesn't interfere with your interests. We'll just be on our way.
It's not that easy.
I mean, it is, though.
You want to leave? Leave.
She will make the gesture of scooping everyone behind her and start backing up.
As you act as shield for the motley between them and whatever that is, and you all back further away from them, you realize that there's only so far back you can go. The wall behind you, made of thorns and mulberries and roses entangled, forming the best way to approximate it is a wall of living, wriggling flora. And as you back, who's the most rear of you?
Probably me, is it Aurora?
I was going to say I probably wouldn't have shoved Kira behind myself as well, so.
Would you be so kind as to tell me your stamina? If it is 2 or less, you will receive a small probing, if you will.
It's exactly it, too.
So while you don't take any immediate damage, you're able to stop yourself before you do. The moment you back up, the thorn that pokes you in several places lets you know what stands behind you. Lets you know that while there may not be an opening where you entered, there's definitely a closing. And you've definitely stepped across a boundary between this world, the next, and landing in, well, Arcadia.
Whispers forward. They closed the way behind us. Somehow we managed to step across, and I don't know when that happened.
Let us go.
We'll whisper back, likely the moment we stepped through.
You think I'm keeping you here? You came of your own free will.
And now we leave the same. Let us go.
Go. Climb through behind you. Figure your way out. But don't ward than me. That's not very nice. Not very kind.
I'm not known for my kindness.
There are certain things that almost immediately change the tenor of a conversation. There are certain implications that follow our decisions. There's always the good old-fashioned right through the front door, as it were. And there's always tiptoe around the side, find an open window, climb through a back door, slip in with the scullery maid or the night's watch as they report for duty. There's always more than one way in, and most of those ways in require the appearance of belonging. In short, there's a etiquette to even doing dirt. There's a way to avoid, to evade, to elude and escape. Charging down the middle tends to work for one sort of person. Would you be so kind as to let me know what your initiative modifier is and roll 1d10.
My modifier is 6, and I rolled a 5.
Is that for all of us or just Jaded?
Jade is leading the way. You guys will follow along behind them, and whatever you guys decide is your course of action. Excuse me. 7 plus. What do we got? If it rolls up. No. It's not rolling. No, that's unfortunate. So it begins like many things. A spare glance, a misphrased word, an incidental stepping on someone else's Jordans, a miscommunication born of unable to see each other eye to eye. How it ends is on you all. You all watch the skies above darken. The Dowd standing an arm, lowering their pikes in your general direction. The rumbling of thunder in the far-off distance, striking close enough that the throne begins to waver off, held by those threads. And the short, corpulent gumdrop of a being removes the cloak lined in spider silk fur to the ground. It is clear what their next action may be. Nothing like officially throwing down the gauntlet. So 4 away from their die pool is your passive defense, unless of course you're actively attempting defense.
Yeah, and I have Hedge Duelist as well, which would add 2 points of armor to myself.
Sounds like fun.
And my actual defense is 3.
Oh, I thought your defense was 4. I've been giving you too much defense.
Oh, well, I have defensive dreamscaping too, so I think that adds. This right here, fighting people in the hedge, yeah, it's kind of what she's built for.
So, there's nothing that wide, nothing that heavy should move that fast. And if you're being honest with yourself, you didn't actually see them move. They dropped their cloak, their crown still askew on their head. The resounding clap as their hand pulls back away from your face sounds like lightning struck where you're standing. It feels as if someone took a taser and shoved it into your eyelid. The insult, the injury. You're trying to decide which one is actually worse in the moment. Please denote 3 health levels.
Well, she will hiss at the others at that, as she uses the momentum from the slap to draw knives and spin around and stab the guy. Hiss at the others to go. Assuming at least one of them has something they can use to navigate the hedge to get themselves out of here.
Aurora has both eidetic memory and direction sense, so that's what she'd be using. Direction sense to figure out how the way out really is.
Hazel. Kira.
Kira stepped away from the keyboard for a moment. I have hedge sense, but before I go, the creepy crawlies are still standing at attention, or are they starting to move in and close?
And they're moving in. They're moving to protect their king. They'll be acting on the next turn.
Okay. So right. So before I go a turn, I will start to tell a story and invoke Tale of the Baba Yaga, but a little bit of a twist on this one since they're doubt and fear based. We're going to tell the story of a little boy who was named Frightened One, set off to conquer his fear and succeeded, because that seems like the kind of thing that would dishearten, doubt creatures.
Do tell.
So, once upon a time, there was a young man who was named the Frightened One because he was afraid of everything. And he wanted to know, why do you call me that? Because you're frightened of everything, his elders told him. And he left to conquer his fear. He set out and slept under a tent first night with wolves howling. He said, I will see you, but I will conquer you, fear. And in the morning, he was glad because he had survived it. He continued walking on until he came to a village that was under siege by a monster with a large crocodile head. And they did not want him. They did not think he could help because he was afraid. And so he went to go talk to it. Smoke and fire. And he was not afraid. He said, I wish to conquer my fear, so I will go slay this beast. He was called, don't do it. It will kill you. But he began to climb and climb and climb. And eventually, he reached the summit. And there was nothing there. But he conquered his fear.
Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your manipulation, plus subterfuge, plus mantle?
We're just being a bit slow for me.
As Hazel speaks, the enraged, squinting eyes of the would-be Lord begins to tear up. There's moisture there that is not the sweat of its flesh. There is a sinking of its shoulders as it, stares, and mouth half agape, sucking in air. Its attention still partially on Harmony, and yet there's a connection there with the story. A softening of all of its imperious, doughy dread of things. And in the cold anger of Harmony, the end goal being self-immolation, being swallowed up by the doubts and the liege lord. While Hazel is speaking, Aurora is already beginning to move away. What is Kira doing?
So if Hazel's focusing on keeping the doubts away, Kira is gonna be focusing on actually moving the body and trying to find a convenient place to dispose of it. Like a dumpster.
The body is supposed to be there. You know where the body was. You know where you were before you stepped across the threshold and found yourself here in this castle of God knows what. The bones of the dead, though people don't actually ever die or get consumed by their bones or by the doubts. The doubts bury themselves into the psyche. The doubts crawl through the flesh and into the mind. How are there bones of the dead? Why is the throne hovering nearly 6 feet above the ground, attached by spider silk? Why is there an open air space above your head instead of a ceiling? All of those questions, compounded by the way that you walked in. Immediately at your rear is a hedge filled with creeping, crawling things that aren't as typical of the hedge as you've experienced. Yes, there are roses interspersed, but there's dogwood and briarwood and various other brambles and thickets mixed in, some of them still dying before your very eyes, the thorns seeming to move and point in whichever direction is most threatening of harm. The hedge does many mysterious things. Arcadia is a being of its own mind. Each of the various lands, each of the various keepers, each of the various things that exist, adding to the whole and yet completely separate from it. So looking towards the moldering corpse that was just in the hallway, in the causeway, looking towards the cameras, which were just where you are now, facing off with one of the lords and hosts of Arcadia, or one of the would-be lords and hosts of Arcadia, and with an army of doubts closing to respond, closing to protect their liege lords, closing to add fuel to the already burning fire. What is it that Kira might be doing, realizing that the corpse is not in fact there, that they are not in fact in Kinford any longer? They're no longer in high school.
Is panicking a valid option?
Always.
I am desperately searching my entire character sheet for something that might help, and I am coming up blank. So Kira is going to try her best to figure out a way out for them then. And if possible, we'll try and just summon up a portal back home, because I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Okay. Trying to find a way through the hedge seems to be what Aurora may be up to.
Yeah, Aurora has direction sense, so she was trying to find her way out. But any help would be wonderful.
Yeah, so then I'll just try and help Aurora. Kira's well aware that her abilities as a changeling are not nearly as potent as some others, so whatever assistance she can provide to the other, the better.
Okay. There is a measure to these things. Ebb and flow, a entering and exiting of things, a balancing of the eternal endless cycle of these moments. And in the spirit of that, and while it's just a little early, it is 31 after the hour. Let's be back here at 41 after.
The interview?
All right. Everybody back?
Yep.
I'm here.
Present.
Yep.
Excellent. Welcome, welcome. So, when we stepped away, Harmony was twirling into action. Hazel was holding the audience captive with a tale about bravery and surmounting one's own fear. The doubts were closing, and Aurora and Kira were moving apace and away from the central conflagration of intentions. So, taking it from the top, once more with the field. Harmony, would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your... You were using your throwing blades, correct?
My stabbing blades.
Okay, so you're covering the distance bodily to get to them once more, or...
He slapped me, didn't he?
He did. And you staggered it back, forcing everyone back as you whirled into action. What is it that you're doing?
I used the momentum to spin into action. I didn't stagger back. Unless you're saying I staggered back, but that wasn't what I had in mind.
Nope, no worries. Sounds like a plan. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity and weaponry? And while that is happening, Aurora, would you be so kind as you're trying to suss out the best way to escape, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your wits plus survival plus word? And while that is in the offing, Kira, you are attempting or thinking of changing your tactic. What might that be?
Yeah, because I think I might have missed the fact that Harmony was fighting someone because I had stepped out to get some water. So seeing that suddenly take place, Kira would probably try and step in and try and stop it, because she's kind of tired of violence and doesn't want any more unnecessary conflict. Emphasis on try, because I did not build Kira to be a social character, so wish me luck.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so Kira's basically gonna just shout out, "Stop, please," in a more enthusiastic tone than I'm able to give right now. Stop, please. We've had enough fighting today.
An impassioned plea. And you are being honest, or you're attempting to manipulate them to hold still long enough for Harmony to strike true.
Honest.
Okay. That being the case, that's your...
Kira did not intend to cause violence, but situation has pushed her to be a bit more violent than she wants to be. But at her core, she is definitely someone who tries and avoids violence, if possible.
Okay.
Since Kira is making an impassioned plea, can I choose to not attack and just spin with my knives out, ready to attack, and still protecting the rest of the group bodily by staying in between them?
Yes.
Then I will do that. I will be ready to dodge.
Kira, would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your presence plus either expression, persuasion, or just simply socialize? Can you strike a chord that makes you seem not the violent sort, not the sort to kick open doors and sprout through the hedge, not the usual expected when it comes to the changeling that drifted through here, when it comes to the lost dreams who fall here?
Wish me and all two of my dice luck here. Oh wow.
You still could risk a glamour and try to get 2 additional dice, just like but anyway, go ahead. So
I got it too.
Stunned though they are by the outpouring of Hazel's dread, because even being positive, the way that Hazel presented the story, there was the hope and the joy in the hero meeting his just deserts, leaping into the fire, being destroyed and immolated, being otherwise defeated. But somehow them rising above struck a chord. Somehow them doing the unthinkable hit a nerve. Somehow the entreaties towards hope paused them, and looking half-heartedly towards the escaping Aurora and trying to keep everyone in range and within eyesight, they raise a pudgy little quivering hand to hold the doubts who are closing like the strange mobile teeth of some monstrous thresher, ever moving forward, the additional limbs not holding the pikes, scuttling them forward, stopping as the fat, pudgy hand raises. The effort of doing so, the sweat pouring from the palm, is its own tale, but in the moment, they stop. And the beady little eyes of the king looks on you all. Why are we stopping? We know this is the way. We know how it is. Why we stop reading?
Hazel will smile at him. It's never too late to change the ending.
He turns, looking at his doubts, looking up at his throne, and he picks up his cloak. The effort being accompanied with as he gets the cloak off the ground and dusts it off. The moment he begins trying to dust it off, several of the doubts put away their pikes and rush towards him, clinging and crawling up the cloak, removing small flicks of what appear to be nothing but clearly motes of dust. And as he twirls into place across his shoulders, they go flying, landing and rolling back to their numerous appendages, once more drawing their pikes. There is a way out, or at least that's what everything in you is telling you. There is a way out. There is always a way out. Nothing but the hedge and iron can ever really hold you, and even the hedge doesn't hold you forever. If you truly want free, it will attempt to misguide you, mislead you, have you go down one too many wrong paths, but it will not actually bar you. Yet here you are in the courtyard, 60 feet away from your motley, as the monarch does something impossible. He goes a tiptoe and twirls. As he does so, he leaps into the air, landing once more on his throne. A look of a child not quite getting what it wants, but still being too full to complain and ask for more. Sitting on all of that jowly rotundness. And his beady little eyes looking over the motley, as if waiting for the next footfall, waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting for what comes next. The story had a defined ending. This is the point where the hero sacrifices themselves for their... But the call to peace, the extolling the virtues of hope in the face of insurmountable odds, has him unsure. For the first time in the entirety of his memory, the king, the monarch, is unsure. And there's a tremulation through the crowd of doubts that are gathered, a lack of confidence, well, what do we do now? Feeling crawling amongst them. And as the king fixes his beady little eyes on you all, you can tell that something besides the surety of knowing how the tale ends is settling in around his heart. And you're sure that it has to be a quite strong and massive heart based on his bulk, based on his weight, based on everything you can see.
So in my Aurora's intent to find the way out, she thinks she knows the way, mostly, but there's still something that's keeping her from finding the complete way out. And she looks back at the others. I think I know the way, but seeing as how the fighting is mostly out, maybe we can have a conversation with this guy about, I don't know. I also don't want to spend too much time across the edge, because remember what happened the last time. We were here for 6 months? Who knows? It could be a couple of days past now, so we need to get back.
Harmony will wipe some of the blood from her lip with the back of her hand and say, all right, well then lead the way.
Looking to the others, and when I guess that's the general consensus. So she curtsies properly in the direction of the guy on the phone. It was a pleasure for this visit, but we have things we need to do, so you have a good evening. And she goes back to looking for the way out. Very focused on not being misled and needing to get to the outside.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your wits, plus your head sense, plus your survival. Your DC is 5. There's an understanding that every maze has its way out. There are certain ways that you're supposed to solve it. There are certain ways you're supposed to think to solve riddles and puzzles and find the hidden truth that is only loosely and lightly hidden. There's always a way to a turn of a phrase or saying it aloud or reading it in the mirror that gives you the answer to all of those puzzles and cones, and there is an answer to it. Yet, a castle built on the idea of doubts and self-recriminations. A castle inside the hedge built on a sense of overwhelming, impending doom. The feeling one gets when they know that something is wrong or that they've done something wrong and they may be found out. That bubbling dark sense of cold heat in the center of one's being. That is the essence of this castle. And try, though mankind does, to find their way through those moments by shutting down, shutting off, trusting in one's own self. The way out of that gloom, as long as you're doing the exact same thing, is never presented to you. Isolating in times of depression, closing down and shutting off, never allows the light to reach into that darkness and lift you up. Alone, well, yes, one has survived all of those moments that have ever come across one's being. But it is only through reaching out to those in one's circle of trust that one is ever able to escape. And as everything in Aurora says, "This way," and they make the left, they realize that it's a dead end, except for if they go all the way to the end of the hall, there's a right turn that they can make, and then there's another left. You know that the way out is in this general direction, but the more you go, the further you fall into the castle, the less clear those feelings become. The closer the walls get, the darker the sky hangs over your head, and it feels as if it is weighing down on you, growing a pound a step. First, light enough that you can jog or run at full speed. Now is all you can do to put one foot in front of the other as the creeping dread of where you are settles in. A castle of doubts inside the hedge, and the whispering of your own voice. You know you can do this. You know it would have been better to leave them all. You know we shouldn't be here. This is what happens when you trust people. You know you probably should just sit. Just stop. No, you should go back the other way. It's definitely the other way. No, it's put another foot forward. That's right. Make it worse for yourself. Keep digging. You can do this. If you dig far enough, at least no one has to put forth the effort to continue burying you. They can just push the dirt back on top of you. Good job making it easier on them. You know you'll be just like that pile of bones soon enough. Even immortal beings can die. And you're not even immortal. You weren't even good enough to stay. To remain in heaven, you'd rather choose hell. You know, they were right when they laughed at you. That thing in your apartment was right. Your art really isn't that good. And on the doubts, they come and they pile on, and they're whispering in your voice inside your head loud enough that you can't even hear your footfalls as they hit the concrete floors beneath you. And while you all trail along behind Aurora, those of you with an expression and empathy of 2 or higher, or those of you with a wit of 3 or higher, it is an impossibility to not know what the weight of one's own doubt feels like. You've all felt the overwhelming oppression of what happens when you doubt yourself, when you doubt the validity of those around you. You've all felt those moments. It's impossible to not see it as it's happening. It's impossible to not have a few of those begin crawling through your own heads. For Kira, it's the officious professorial voice in the shadows of her mind. Oh, this is quite interesting. You should probably jot that down. Make a note of that. For Hazel. It's the many hands adjusting the way that you're standing, smoothing your clothes, straightening your hair, painting your lips, making you into be whatever was needed for someone else. Your own whims, your own concerns, your own agency of no value whatsoever, because there was nothing there to begin with, was what you were constantly told. The truth of what you are is, well, unfortunately, nothing, but you might as well use that nothing to better the world around you. And after several years and several months and several careful, concentrated efforts, it's very hard to not believe that there must be some basis of truth there. After all, you went missing. No one came looking. After all, even before you went missing, before you disappeared into the hedge, you were at the whim of others. And then harmony, the very real balance of what that name means, being at peace. Doesn't mean being at absence of anything. It means being balanced and at peace. And there's never been a moment in harmony's existence where they have been at peace. Everything was either too over or too underwhelming. Everything was in need of your direct action, lest it spin into chaos, yet each action only adding to the chaos around you. Pretty enough to look at, but never pretty enough to know. Beautiful enough to catch the breath at the back of the throat, but too cold to touch. Needing the warmth that is offered to you, but not being able to trust it because it will burn you to a crisp. It will end your existence. And it starts as whispers, then full-fledged conversations with yourself. And each step you all move further and further into the castle. You all begin to hear those voices louder. They begin to weigh on you. You begin to feel the breath of that other against your skin. And the weight of your clothes becomes the weight of armor, becomes the weight of rucksacks, becomes the weight of carrying yourself, becomes the weight of carrying yourself and everything else you have ever owned.
Harmony will speak. She will say to Aurora, just like your namesake, you are the dawn. You are our light. You make the path. Don't make the path make you. We believe in you. You got this. Get us out of here. You can do it.
Does that help?
Trying to be all inspiring like a Ferrist.
No, I understood. I was asking the storyteller, does it help?
Is that the only action being taken? Trudging along with harmony, sounding the alarm.
Well, once Aurora hears that, she's going to pause herself in the middle of the path they're taking. Focus on those words. And not get rid of all the doubt, but try to shake off as much as she can.
I imagine that Hazel would take Kira's hand in one and hold Aurora's in the other.
One of the many things that we tout, one of the many things that we have explored with the change is the fact that magic happens all around us. There is an inherent beauty in all of the ugliness of the world in which we reside. The changelings feel that on an existential level. It rifles through the very core of their being. It echoes through their actions and their inactions. It is in every breath that they decide to take and all of the opportunities they turn a blind eye to. In reaching across the divide and reaching through the shadows of their own mind and attempting to inspire Aurora, would Harmony be so kind as to roll their presence plus mantle plus word, with the +1 from Hazel offering touch and sucre, the magic of laying on of hands. At a standard DC, each success will add a bonus to Aurora's attempt to shake off the very real blanket of the space in which you all are inhabiting, will receive a bonus to their next roll.
Well, it's not nothing.
Aurora, would you be so kind as to roll the same roll for piloting your way out, navigating the castle on the hedge by extension with a bonus of +4? And as you roll, the reality of what's being done, it is moving heaven and earth to reach across the divide of space and time, to offer one's body, to vote with one's feet, to incite and instill inspiration that yes, you have this, we are here for you. There is a magic and the power therein. And in Harmony's case, in this moment, that magic, that power breathes a chill, refreshing gust of wind. The morning smells of a fresh, crisp winter day before it's too cold and one has to bundle in 17 different layers. But just after it is clear that summer and fall are completely over. That first touch of winter that brings a rose to the cheeks and a smile to the lips. Because yes, the sun is still bright and shining, but there's a crispness to the air as all of the greenery and the browns of the other season fades into a beautiful white. And like a kid on Christmas morning, there is a hope that begins to sweep away the doubts.
Now, is that 4 extra dice or 4 to the success
4 additional dice.
of the roll? Same DC as before?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm just the first time I rolled to find her way out, there was no difficulty, but the second time there was 5. So am I putting the 5 or the 0?
5. There's a riddle in most things, a way that it must be solved, a way that it must be approached. Having the right vantage points provides you with the opportunity of having the correct answers for most problems. It's the reasons why standardized tests, if taught towards the test, the success rates grow exponentially. Because there's a vantage point and a perception that's part of that teaching. Not just the answers themselves, but how they came about those answers. And sadly, in modern times, that's just memorization. It's not teaching how to think or the paths to take to minimize the opportunity for failure. But very much the idea behind riddles and cones is teaching how to think. Whatever answer you come up with is in fact the right answer, provided you have the right vantage point and the right perception. Escaping doubts permanently is an impossibility. But continuing on and not allowing them to weigh you down is a probability based on you changing your perception, knowing that you are not alone, knowing that joyfulness trumps happiness, knowing that it is not a results-driven thing. While it's true that man can adapt to nearly anything and survive nearly anything, survival is not life. Survival is not joyfulness. And that's where Aurora gets her strength, in knowing that she is not alone, knowing that happiness and joy are a real possibility and probability. And realizing that they, her motley, are here with her, for her, their faith resting on her, giving her wings, lets her realize that the way out, while not exactly where you began, is close enough to spit at. There's a reason why everything is so heavy and light both at one time. Surmounting doubt permanently, while impossible, is doable in the moment. And in the doing, in the realization of such, that niggling doubt of make a left here and make a right there falls away. Nothing holds the changeling for long. Nothing holds them permanently, ever. And as you all fall through the kitchen into a closet, out through the back of the closet, into the garden, across the maze of the hedgerow, in the garden, across the pond, you find yourself exiting the athletics building at Kenwood Academy, looking at Lake Park Drive, hearing the sirens coming from both the east and the south of your present location. You all watch the last metro train of the night go racing north towards the loop, and the cars easing north and south along Lake Park Avenue. The freshness of the air letting you know that you are once again in the real world. And the sirens that are heading in your direction aren't exactly heading in your direction. They're the sirens of a city in full bloom. Hyde Park, while a melting pot, is still a very active urban area. And as you take in the sounds around you. And as you hear the world scream back into active life, judging by the light in the night sky, judging by the last metro train that is flying by, you know that you've arrived at Kenwood roughly an hour before Kira and her guardian arrived ahead of you all.
Wait, you mean we traveled back in time? Is that what I'm getting from that?
That's what it sounds like.
Right this very moment, you know where you were was contemplating on how to get inside the courtyard building. Right now, where you were is several blocks, almost a mile northwest of where you are right now. Where you are and where you were are two different places in this moment. You know, right this moment, Aurora and Hazel are moving around the backside of the building to find their way in. Right now, this moment, you know, Hazel is making you and her welcome into the building. You all are becoming lord and master of the building, entering it. You know right now that you've all just finished casing your childhood home and deciding what is the best path forward. And while you all know this, here you stand.
Do I sense two Kiras?
Do I sense two Hazels?
No, not at all. It is your past and maybe your future. But in the moment, here you stand at high school on the athletics field of Kenwood Academy, Kenwood High School, Kenwood Academic Center, which never makes sense to you all. What exactly is an academic center? Technically, the way those words are arranged, isn't that every school?
Kira is going to, because she's like in complete disbelief about going back in time, she brings out her phone and checks the time to confirm, is this actually the case? Did they really go back in time?
Would you be so kind as you look at your phone? First things first, would you be so kind as to roll your clarity? You need at least one success.
So my clarity is at 6. That means I'm rolling 6 dice.
Yep, you need only one success, because if you don't, you will take a mark against your clarity and drop to 5.
Do we include banality in this roll, or?
Nope, just clarity.
I have succeeded.
You bring out your phone, and there's a picture of you and your fetch as if you guys are best friends. The worst thing, the thing that really sends you into a tailspin, is there's a text message from no one that simply says, jot that down.
Kira drops her phone. And is starting to like heavily breathe. Because she in no way expected number one, no way expected her keeper to be able to text her. And number two, has no idea how to interpret that image. So she's basically in shock.
Okay. Well, Hazel will draw her into an embrace, patting hair, soothing.
So
No,
do we
here.
try to stop our other selves?
Yes?
Hear me out, Kira will say. I don't know how stopping ourselves would play out, if that would cause a paradox. I'd prefer not to cause reality to unravel upon itself.
What if we just did something else? Because if we're doing something else, we're not doing what we were doing. I don't know how that works, but that seems like sound logic to me.
Hear me out. Before I say this, storyteller, just to make sure I understand or I'm interpreting what you said earlier to be correct, you said we didn't sense a second version of ourselves. Does that mean that there isn't, like, we're the only ones present, or so, like, there's not like a second group of us back at the house infiltrating Kira's house?
That would be a valid thought, yes.
Okay. Kira will speak up. So there's one of two possibilities. Number one, there isn't a second group of us, and we've just basically been moved to this location, and we're free to basically do whatever we want without consequence for the next hour. Or number two, there is actually a second group of us that we just can't sense, in which case all the events will continue to take place, in which case it might benefit us now that we're here if we go in and disable the security system so that we're not on camera when it happens. I'm inclined to think that there isn't a second group of us.
I could have taken care of the cameras.
Oh dear God, storyteller. These messages you're sending me are gonna give me a heart attack.
Hey, you want to be Intelligence 5, not me, man.
Jesus Christ, this is terrifying information that you've now given me.
If there is a second us, could we leave stuff for that second us to make hiding the body of the wolf thing easier later? Because that would have been great.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has just occurred to me. This might be how fetches are made.
Possibly, but that has no bearing on our current situation.
Yes, as a precaution, it would be best if we leave some stuff behind to make it easier and disable security so that we don't get caught or have any repercussions.
You know what would be a better idea if we're running with this whole there's two groups of us? What if we just intercepted the thing that has you before it got to the school? We know where it's coming from. We know where it's going. That should be an easy task.
Also true.
You know what? Fuck it, we're in uncharted territory. Paradoxes be damned. We'll do that then.
It was all a blur. It was all a quick moving moment of time. It happened so forcefully that much of it for you wasn't in fact a blur. It was almost as if you weren't actually there, as if you weren't present in mind, because someone that had always been in your life, circling around you, was a creature of Arcadia this whole entire time. The shock of that was weighty enough. But as you all put thought into action, and you all move towards that path of interception, watching how quickly it actually moved. Is breathtaking. There's poetry in motion, the idea of it, and then there's watching and grand soliloquy of one of the best authors to ever pick up a pen, to pick up a keyboard, to pick up a quill. And that would still fall short of how quickly and forcefully it is moving. It is moving with the predatory grace of something born to hunt. And yet, it was assigned to watch, to protect, to hide. As it's moving towards you all, holding Kira in his hands. What are you all preparing to do?
Present it with a second Kira and confuse it and then make off with both Kiras.
That sounds like an excellent plan.
Does anybody have a net?
No.
If I had a contract for it, I could paint one into existence for you. Sadly, I don't.
I mean, we could make one out of elemental weapon.
That's fair enough. I do in fact have elemental weapon.
And what are you speaking to?
Kira, once they see the thing, will shout out to it, "Hey, I'm over here!"
All right, that being the case, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your manipulation and either your persuasion or intimidation?
I'll risk a glamour for this because that means I would only have one dice.
Hey, there's a chance. You got this. Make it happen.
It's basically just a rouse.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So does that just increase my dice by 1 or 2?
2.
2? Okay. I'll spend willpower. Better safe than sorry.
And while Kira is attempting to distract it, what is everyone else doing? Standing next to each other like the Care Bears? Forming up like the Transformers? Or attempting to become a Gestalt being like Voltron?
Right. That's amazing, Voltron. No, Hazel is going to lend the weight of her word and it's like, we've got the real one over here.
Harmony is going to move into a position to sneak up on it in case it doesn't get captured by the net.
And Aurora? Aurora, did we lose you?
No, quicksand. I'm gonna make some mud with some water where I know it's gonna step.
Okay. So that being the case, Harmony, your stealth, of course, is going to be your dexterity plus stealth, of course. Hazel, adding 2, you can take a chance. You can either roll your manipulation and either persuasion, intimidation, or you can add an automatic 1. And Aurora, as it is in fact an attempt at stealth and trapping, you will need to go ahead and roll either your wits plus survival or your wits plus weaponry, because you're effectively making a pit trap for it.
I think we're just gonna roll that separately. That's persuasion, by the way.
Alright, sounds like a plan. Alright, let's see. That's a minus 3. The highest is 4, so minus 3. Total outcome of 5. Let's see what we get. They need a 5. Do they get a 5? And what does fate have in store for our modeling? Horrible success. There's knowing something's dangerous and then seeing it in action. You have had the opportunity of seeing how quickly it moves, how strongly he was this whole entire time. You've spoken to its stress-addled mind as it tried to find a way, and it kept mentioning just make you forget like always. And that conversation comes screaming back into your immediate memory as it turns on a dime and rushes forward as the concrete opens, swallowing it up, with it stepping just past Harmony, who's hiding at the bumper of a car. There's no way someone as tall, statuesque, and immediately noticeably beautiful should be able to disappear the way that they did. Yet they were able to completely camouflage themselves in the urban landscape. The combined effort of you and Hazel, luring it in as if it had no other choice. And as it sinks into the concrete, a dreadful understanding falls into place. It is always said, we can make you forget. All we need is a little pain. And as the concrete swallows it, with you barely floating along the top, the gnarled, extra long fingers wrapped around your torso, pulling you down into the muck of the concrete. There's something immediately familiar. You remember drowning. You remember being buried alive. You remember falling down a mountain. You remember flying. You remember being set on fire. You remember what it's like being walked across a battlefield to your death. You remember what it's like to find buried treasure on an island in the middle of nowhere. You know what it's like to fall in love with a beast and restore their humanity. You know what it's like watching yourself die. Every story has an ending, be it the closing of the book or the last word in the last page. Every story has an ending. The best stories end higher than they began. The best stories leave you with a feeling of completion. All of your questions answered. This is not one of those stories. As you watch yourself being sucked into the concrete, and as you remember the countless other tales that you've experienced in the flesh, as you remember the countless number of times you've watched yourself cease to be, the questions that begin bouncing along the inside of your mind, trying to fill the gaps of why you understand what it feels like, why you have those memories, and yet you have no memory of making those memories, is its own hell. And the most destructive part of that realization and those questions bouncing around your head is that same look of knowing, like an electric current, flows from you into Hazel, into Aurora, into Harmony, and back to you. You've all seen this before. You've all seen this before with various faces from your past and your present. You've all seen yourself in those same situations before. And while you don't know whose voice it is, and while you don't quite know where you've heard it before, each of you as Kira sinks into the concrete, her flaming red hair ceasing to be with a blub and a glug, here, whispered from some place in your past. Ooh, do make a note of that. Jot that down. And on that note, thank you all for a lovely episode. And we'll see you guys next time. Good night, everybody.
No.
Kira's going to finish the session by having an existential crisis.
Hazel's right there with you.